Right.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. This is our second session with Rami Ismail, and today we're going to be talking about marketing. I think this would be a pretty decent introduction at this point. So, Rami, all yours.
Okay.
Simple.
Yeah, that works. That works. Hi. Should I do an introduction or shall we just go?
Up to you. Sure. I mean, if you prefer an introduction.
I can. So for those of you who don't know me or haven't seen me in the other time, my name is Rami Ismail. I am a Dutch Egyptian game developer. I worked at a studio called Vlaambeer. I've been making games for the past 15 years. Most recently released was called Ridiculous Fishing EX on Apple Arcade. But I also worked on games such as Nuclear Throne, which released on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, Stadia, Ouya, like anything that ever existed, we put it out on. You would say oof Stadia, but somehow that is not the most painful platform we put it on. That was Ouya. Ouya was by far the most oof like platform out there. For the past 15 years, I've been making indie games, and I've been helping a lot of developers with indie games. And back then, things were a bit of a different time. That's important to know. It's important to know that back then, you know, the idea of indie games marketing was put on a suit that is pink, and then everybody will ask, "Why are you wearing a pink suit?" And then you'll go like, "Well, to get you to talk to me about my game." And then people will talk about your game. The press didn't really care about indie games. Twitch didn't exist yet. YouTubers were not doing the kind of content they are today. So like there's a very different time, like very different sort of like approach. That said, as independent game development grew, I was involved in a lot of the changes that happened. So I created Press Kit, which is a free toolkit to make press kits, which is now basically the industry standard. If you see any press kit, they're probably using my structure or my software. I worked with PlayStation and Microsoft and Nintendo to sort of establish how they work with indie games. So as things grew, I was part of a large part of sort of what happened. And that's important context, I think, because it also means that you sort of understand why my views on marketing are the way they are, and that they're not necessarily going to be just practical information. There's also going to be a bit of like, how do we think about marketing? Why do we think about marketing that way? And, you know, that is kind of where I'm going to start from. As always with my talk, it is important to recognize that any talk is an opinion. If you disagree with anything I say, you know, feel free to. I'm just a person. Now I am a person who's been doing this for a while, but if you go, what Rami was talking about, I don't think that fits my studio, I don't think that fits my work, then please ignore me. And then if you need to, or if you're successful, come talk to me and let me know how it worked out, okay? Because I'd love to know what you did different that did work. That's how I learn, is by just seeing things that people do that do work, seeing things that people do that don't work, and then talking to them so I can learn. Good. I think that's enough introduction. Let's go talk about marketing. So what is marketing, right? What is marketing? I feel very much like an Arab. So what is marketing? يعني إيه الماركتينج? Marketing is not one thing. It's not one thing. A lot of people think of marketing as one big thing, but it's actually subdivided into different parts of marketing. And I think what we're going to do is we're just going to go through each of these. Now, I want to do a bit of an interactive talk. So if you have any questions at any point, feel free. Let me know, just put them in chat, and then I'll try and see if I can answer them. I don't like waiting all the way till the end with questions. It works, but like if there's questions now, just drop them in, okay? Marketing is divided into several parts, and the first thing I want to talk about is how we actually subdivide marketing, because there's multiple ways of subdividing it, and each of them is important. So the first part I want to talk about is about the funnel. The funnel is this idea that there are 3 stages, or even more, but mostly 3 stages of marketing. There's the part where a person doesn't know about your game. There's the part where a person does know about your game, and there's the part where a person can make a decision about your game, right? So that means that a normal games funnel looks something like when a person comes across your game on the internet, on social media, on a Twitch stream, when a person is on your store page, and when a person has to click the buy button or wish list, right? Those are sort of like the 3 steps of marketing. And I want to talk about those for a minute, because a lot of people think of marketing as one thing and then try to solve for one thing. But really what you have to do is you just have to solve for these 3 separate problems. They're 3 different problems, and they're 3 very different problems that need very different types of attention. So the first one you want to think about is basically you want to think about the bottom of the funnel. And the word funnel comes from the thing you've seen in kitchens, like plastic. It's like round, and it's wide at the top, and it goes small, and then it goes down, and you can pour stuff in it so that it doesn't pour out. Those things. The bottom of the funnel is the narrow part, and it's the narrow part because by that point we're gonna have filtered any person that doesn't want the game. At that point, we're only left with people who want to buy the game, and all we have to do is we have to get them to that buy button. We have to get them to that wish list button, right? That's the critical part here. So when you're at the bottom of the funnel, we're talking about the store page. Store pages are one of those things that most developers don't take seriously enough, not even close. Half of the consultancies I get, maybe more, one of the pieces of feedback I give them is your store page is bad. It's just really, really bad. Because your store page consists out of a number of things. And if you look at an average store page for a game, the things you're going to see are a trailer, a bunch of screenshots, a blurb, which is the word for a very short description, and the top of the actual description. There will usually be some sort of tags that relate to the genre or the type of game. There'll be a review score, which is also important, but we'll get to that later. And that's kind of what people are going to see on their first impression. Now, that first impression, people say scientifically, you have 2 to 7 seconds to catch people's attention and to hold it, right? Anything that distracts means your sale is gone. Means it's gone. So if your sale page isn't good enough, if your sale page isn't good enough for somebody to get a message and not close the window instead of tab out of the window, your store page isn't good enough. If it's not good enough for somebody to get a phone call and then not close the window, but tab away in the window, your store page isn't good enough. So there can be nothing on your store page that isn't great, that isn't amazing, that isn't good. It has every word on that needs to be good. So your description usually is a short description of your game, a list of bullet points, and then another short description of your game. Those have to be good. There can't be anything in there that isn't good, right? And Ahmed Fahad here is asking, what makes it good or great exactly? Well, I like to think of store pages like math. The more you can simplify it, the easier it is to read, right? So a lot of store pages, they talk a lot, but they don't say anything. They don't say anything. And that's a little crazy because sometimes you see store pages with like a book of text. At the end, you're like, what is special about this game? And you go, I don't know. They said a whole bunch of words, right? Let me see if I can find this for you. Because I recently came across a really good one, a good example of that. Not this one. Maybe this one. No, this was a really good pitch. Sorry, I'm just going through my pitches and seeing, because I get a lot of pitches. So sometimes it helps to give you an example. Otherwise, I'm just saying words, and I know like you kind of know what I mean, but if I can just actually show you what I mean, that might help. Was this it? No, I can't find it. It was a pretty good pitch. But there was a slide on there that basically just had a lot of works. Ahmed, what I said last time about pitching absolutely applies to the description of the store page. But what's important is that you consider your audience. For your pitch, you're trying to sell it to a publisher. For the audience, you're trying to sell it to an audience. So we're going to be a little bit more salesperson-y in this, right? Audience also cares about different things than the publisher does. But similarly, everything has to be meaningful. So saying 12 characters, like in the pitch last time, saying 12 characters still means nothing. You can say this game has 12 characters and nobody is going to go like, I want that game, right? It's just not going to happen. But what you can talk about is why is it relevant that these 12 characters are different? So you could say 12 unique gameplay changing characters to choose from and to evolve your own character class or whatever it is, right? It might think like that sounds generic, right? And yeah, it does. But it is specific enough that you now understand what it means, right? What I think is important is that if you take an example of a good one, they actually generally sound fairly generic because audiences want to know what they're getting into. They want to know what they're buying. And the honest, simplest way to do that is to sort of lean into, okay, that's what it is. Take this, a story-ish party-based RPG set in the universe of Dungeons and Dragons where your choices shape a tale of fellowship and betrayal, survival and sacrifice, and the lure of absolute power. That could be like, except for the universe of Dungeons and Dragons, that could be 40, 50, 60, 70 games. But it's important that it's in the universe of Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that's Baldur's Gate 3. That is currently one of the best-selling games in the world. It is one of it's a super impressive game. When you look at the store page, you're seeing something fairly generic. Gather your party and return to the Forgotten Realms in a tale of fellowship and betrayal, sacrifice and survival, and the lure of absolute power. Now, they've realized that is the sentence that sells their game. A tale of fellowship and betrayal, sacrifice and survival, and the lure of absolute power. And you see how simple that sentence is, but how much it says about the game? At this point, you know it's an RPG. You know it's fantasy because they use fellowship. Fellowship, that's an RPG word, right? That's a fantasy word. That's not nobody says like, oh yeah, we're going on a spaceship fellowship. That's not. Nobody goes on a space fellowship. Nobody goes on a submarine fellowship, right? Like nobody goes on an airplane fellowship. You go on a fellowship with a bunch of elves. That's what you do. That's what the word means. Mysterious abilities are awakening inside you, drawn from a mind flayer parasite planted in your brain, resist and turn darkness against itself, or embrace corruption and become ultimate evil. Very quickly, very simple. This is still in flavor, right? It's in flavor of the game. And that's important. It stays in flavor of the game. It is not choosing to be anything else. Baldur's Gate is a storytelling game. So they're telling the story as if they are a DM. You are this and this. You can resist and turn darkness against itself. You can embrace corruption or become ultimate evil. You have choice. You have freedom, right? And that works because that's what the game is about. From the creators of Divinity Original Sin 2 comes the next generation RPG set in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. Clearly, it's important to them that it's in Dungeons and Dragons. Next generation RPG, right? And now they get to do some interesting things because they are using Dungeons and Dragons. So here they're going to do something that I disagree with. Choose from 12 classes and 11 races from the D&D's player handbook and create your own identity. But notice that what they do is they say, okay, you have all these options, but ultimately it's up to you, right? Create your own identity or play as an origin hero with a handcrafted background, tangle with your inner corruption as the dark urge, a fully customizable origin hero with its unique mechanics and story. And now they're making it, see, they're pointing out special again. They're not just saying, okay, there's 12 classes and 11 races. No, here's what you can do with it. Whoever you choose to be, adventure, loot, battle, and romance your way across the Forgotten Realms and beyond, gather your party, take the adventure online as a party of up to 4. And you start seeing these are relatively generic sentences, but they really are about the game. They're in flavor of the game. They're in text of the game, and they are pressing on every selling point they got, and they know their selling points. They know what their selling points are, right? Dungeons and Dragons, huge selling point, which is also why they're getting away with the 12 classes, 11 races. It's a storytelling game. You choose whether you embrace corruption, turn darkness against itself, become ultimate evil. But the ultimate evil there is doing a lot of work. They were effectively saying you can't just be a bad guy. No, you can be the most evil thing this universe has ever seen. That's exciting, right? What does ultimate evil mean? I want to be ultimate evil. That sounds fun. That sounds like a fun thing to do in a video game. I'll be ultimate evil. Take the party adventure online as a party of up to 4. Okay, I can play with up to 4 characters. I can imagine that as well. Now, if you go to that page, Ahmed linked it a little earlier. You also notice that it's full of images, beautiful images, and that as you continue, it's full of a ton of text, a ton of bullet points, and then it ends with an image of a character like about to grab their weapon. Character has horns. This entire thing is pretty much flawless. This is the first time I'm seeing the story page, by the way. I would have happily criticized it if it was bad, but this is good work. And it's good work because it kind of unfolds. And I always tell people, if you're going to write, and we're going to use this phrase a lot in this class, if you're going to write, you want to write like a pyramid. Not because I'm Egyptian, just because that's the way you should write. The way you should write looks like this, where the reader starts at the top. So you start with the shortest amount of information they need to know to go, yeah, I want that. I'm good. I've read enough, right? And there will be people who get to the story page and go, gather your party, return to the Forgotten Realms until fellowship and betrayal, sacrifice and survival, lure of absolute power, mysterious abilities, we're done. Class, good, I want the game, right? Amazing, good, we're done. But then for the people who have some more, they want to know some more, they're a little more curious, it's an exciting intro. Oh, okay, that's what the game is. Okay, well, let's read a little more. Okay, let's talk about the 12 classes. We have 11 races. It's from the D&D Player's Handbook, so we're keeping that. You create your own identity. You can adventure, loot, battle, romance. There's a lot to do. You have to fight corruption. You're abducted. You're turning into a monster, but you're getting stronger. You're in a conflict between devils, deities, otherworldly forces. It's built on some sort of Divinity 4.0 engine. You have unprecedented freedom to explore, experiment, interact, a grand cinematic narrative. Okay, that's the second layer, right? They're talking a bit more, but they're not going super in-depth yet. It's still like very much on features and sort of like a little bit of more context. And if that isn't enough, they have an entire page of bullet points. Online multiplayer for up to 4 players, origin characters, evolved turn-based combat, unprecedented breadth and depth, romances with complexity and depth, customize your experience for streaming. All of these things are there for if the previous thing isn't enough. Now, think about it. 11 races, 12 characters. You go a bit further here, it says featuring 31 sub-races on top of the 11 races: human, Githyanki, half-orc, dwarf, elf, drow, tiefling, halfling, half-elf, gnome, dragonborn. 46 subclasses branching out of the 12 classes, 600 spells and actions, near limitless freedom of interactivity in a handcrafted world. Right? And here they go, right? Here they're changing it from numbers into why those numbers matter. It's about freedom of interactivity. It's about this handcrafted world where exploration is rewarded, player agency defines the journey, our unique character creator feature, unprecedented depth of character. And this word unprecedented keeps coming back. They're bragging. And they should, right? This is how you look at a store page. It's not about a lot of text or not a lot of text. It's about making sure that you meet people where they want to be, right? Where they want to be with the game. So when people come to your store page, there's one thing we need to be sure of, which is we need to be sure that they're interested in the game. Because if they're interested in the game, we can meet them halfway. We can say, okay, this is what you expect. And actually, you're right. That's it. That's what you're getting, right? And if you do that, you want to make sure that there's nothing on that page that makes people turn away. If I'm reading this store page, there hasn't been a single thing where I'm like, no, that's not super interesting. I want to read this. Like, what do you mean 174 hours of cinematics, right? Like, that's a lot. I want to know about this. But you can do that with any game, right? Like if you take another game with a fairly good store page, grab, for example, the RPG game where you don't have to destroy anyone, right? Welcome to Undertale. In this RPG, you control a human who falls underground into the world of monsters. Now you must find your way out or stay trapped forever. Killing is unnecessary. Negotiate out of danger using a unique battle system. Time your attacks for extra damage, then dodge enemy attacks. This style reminiscent of top-down shooters. An RPG with top-down shooters. Original art and soundtrack bring with personality. You know, soulful character-rich story with an emphasis on humor. Okay, it's humor. Created mostly by one person. Is that good? No. I think that's not the strongest bullet point, but okay. At least 5 dogs. Brilliant. They just said this is a funny game, and here you go. At least 5 dogs. You can date a skeleton. Next bullet point. Now there are 6 dogs. Next bullet point. Maybe you don't want to date the skeleton. Next bullet point. I found a 7th dog, but it was actually just the 3rd dog. Next bullet point. If you play this game, can you count the dogs for me? I'm not good at it. Right? It leans into what Undertale is. And the reviews at the top are bad reviews. Toby, the creator of Undertale, picked quote from the reviews that are bad. The puzzles aren't particularly impressive. 10 out of 10. Destructoid. I have a couple of issues with the user interface. 10 out of 10. PC Invasion. If there's criticism to be had, it's that sometimes Toby Fox doesn't know when to let a joke go. 10 out of 10. The Jimquisition. He's leaning into the strength of his game, right? Now you might say, okay, but my game doesn't have strengths like that. That's a problem. That's a problem you can't fix with marketing. You can't market something that isn't good to be good. You can't market something that doesn't have this unique selling points, this flavor, this world. You can't market something that isn't good. Yeah, you can get people to know about it, but you can't market it, which is why I think, given everything we've just described about the store page, this is something you should be thinking of so early in development, right? When you're prototyping, when you're going towards your vertical slice, some part in the back of your head should be thinking, would this look good on a store page? Is this going to be good on a store page? Can I talk about this on a store page? Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if it doesn't work, but you should be aware that if there's nothing that works on a store page, the game is just not going to sell. At which point, it's a great hobby project, but it's not a commercial video game. If you want to do a commercial video game, you need to be thinking about the commercial context, the commercial reality. You have to think about the marketing and the communication. How can I talk about this? If you're coming up with your art style, whoever is in charge of your marketing needs to sit in that meeting and go like, hey, I don't know if I can make good screenshots of something that looks like that. And then, we can argue about it. We can make some screenshots. We can test a bunch. We can test on some people. Oh, does this look good? Does this look nice? Would you click on it? But if it doesn't, then we have a problem, right? And don't forget, that doesn't mean that the game has to look beautiful. It just has to look authentic. If you look at the Undertale screenshots on the Undertale store page, those aren't beautiful screenshots, but they're smartly picked. Long ago, 2 races ruled over Earth, humans and monsters. Here's a picture of a character in flowers. Here's a picture of Frogget and Whimsun. Here's a picture of playfully crinkling through the leaves fills you with determination. You know, like all of these little things that just are kind of weird, but it has a style. It's consistent. It feels coherent. You look at it, you're like, okay, that's a video game. Yeah. Okay. All right. I want to move away from the store page a little, but what we're still going to talk about for one more moment is that your store page screenshots are critically important. And a lot of developers leave this until the very last moment. My recommendation, if you're programming your game, you're in Unity, you're in Unreal, you're in Game Maker, you're in Godot, you're in whatever you want, write a line of code that every minute just outputs a screenshot, just renders the screen to a file. Just do that. You don't have to start with it right away, but like when you're getting to like actual level development and play testing and all of that, just write a script that takes a screenshot every 30 seconds, every minute. At the end of the week, take those 5,000 screenshots, scroll through. If there's anywhere you go like, oh, that's a good screenshot, keep it. Right? That's what I do. I literally have folders with 200,000, 300,000 screenshots from months of development across a team of like 10, 15 people. And we were outputting screenshots every X seconds because we were doing Nuclear Throne. And Nuclear Throne looks great in a lot of screenshots, but it looks amazing in a few screenshots. When the action looks just right, and you can kind of figure, oh, that's what's happening. This character's shooting. Getting that screenshot intentionally is really hard. Getting that screenshot by accident, also really hard, but you can automate it. So we automated it. And then when we saw a screenshot, it was always right. We would go into the engine and just fake it. Just fake the screenshot. Oh, put a bullet here, put a bullet there, put a character there. Okay, let it run. Okay, take some screenshot. Okay, done. Yeah, is a good one in here? Nope. All right, let's do it again. Screenshots are worth spending time on. They really are. This is not something you want to rush. When people come to me and they're like, our game is launching in 3 weeks, we're starting on a store page. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean 3 weeks? Like screenshots take months. Just screenshots take months. Trailer takes a month. A good trailer takes a lot of time. Same thing for trailer. If you're going to do a trailer, do a good trailer. It's the first thing people are going to see. If you have some money, hire somebody who can do trailers. Hire somebody who can cut together a commercial. It doesn't have to be an international famous trailer person. You don't have to get Kurt Gardner involved or any of the big trailer people. No, you don't have to. You can ask them if you want to. But if you can find somebody who's good at cutting together a commercial or a trailer for a movie or for a short film or for whatever, yeah, do that. Grab them. If you're doing mobile games, keep in mind that on mobile, screenshots with HUD work better, and that on PC in general, screenshots without HUD do better. Although you still want to include a number of screenshots with HUD no matter what. Cool. So much for store pages. Screenshots, important. Order them in how good they are. It's up to you to decide how good is, but always be looking for the 3 things I've been talking about, right? Flavor, meaning, and if I read this, will I click away? That last one is important because it means that you want to minimize the words. That store page that Baldur's Gate did, the only reason they can do that is because they have a giant game. So they can talk about it for days and not say anything boring because you're learning new stuff. Undertale, they don't. They have very little. There's very little to say about Undertale without spoiling Undertale. So it's 2 sentences. It's 2 sentences. And then it's a feature bullet point list. And the feature bullet point list is a joke. And that's it. You don't even have time to click away. By the time you're at the bottom of that, you're either going to buy the game or you're not going to buy the game. Right? So that's number 1. Number 2, marketing to get people to your store page. Right? And this is the most complicated one. Out of all of them, this is the most complicated one. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip over that for now, and we're going to go one further. Because if you see the both ends that we're coming from, you can see how we want to connect them, right? So on the outside is somebody has never heard of your game. Now, that's what most people think about when they think about marketing. They think about, how do we make sure people hear about our game? Here's the thing. People knowing about your game is not good for you. That's not good for you. Because just knowing about your game doesn't mean they know it's good. It doesn't mean they know it's for them. Now, there was a trick that I was one taught that I use for all my marketing. And it's a very simple trick. Instead of trying to market for people to like your game, market for people to hate your game. Okay? This sounds weird, but let me run you through it. When you market for people to like your game, right? You're coming from a place where you want everybody to like your game, right? And when you're trying to make something that's good for everybody, you make something that's mediocre, right? Because you can't play into the strengths and likes and loves of the people that will like your game, right? Now, if you try and make a marketing page, if you try and do marketing copy, if you write your tweets, your social media, your press release, if you write it so that people who wouldn't love your game anyway would hate it, that means you're leaning into your strengths. And that means the people that will connect with it, that could connect with it, can connect with it. Because you're pulling into those strengths. You're saying, okay, you know what? If you don't like this, you're not going to like our game. Good, let's talk about it. Let's talk about that. Let's not talk about that the game has, because it's the same thing, right? Many characters is good for every player base, right? There's not a player base that wouldn't like player choices. Even in like RPGs, having multiple characters, like Assassin's Creed has multiple characters, like lots of adventure games have multiple characters. Multiple characters is a fairly generic thing to say. It doesn't make anybody hate your game though, right? So let's try and find a way where they would hate that game. How can we talk about our game in such a way that the people that weren't going to like my game anyway would hate it? So for Nuclear Throne, we say, we talk about like fast-paced action. That's important to us. I don't even remember what we put on the Nuclear Throne store page at this point. That's years ago. Oh yeah, here we go. Nuclear Throne is a post-apocalyptic roguelike top-down shooter, not the final hope of humanity, post-apocalyptic, but humanity is extinct and mutants and monsters now roam the world post-apocalyptic. Fight your way through the wastelands with powerful weaponry, collecting radiation to mutate some new limbs and abilities. All these things and more you could do if only you were good at this game. Can you reach Nuclear Throne? Anybody who doesn't like roguelikes is going to read that and go, well, screw you. Right? If only you were good at this game. But the people that like that punishing kind of gameplay, right? The people that like developers handing them their ass, they're gonna like this. And that's what we wanted. We don't need everybody to love this game. In fact, we already know the majority of people won't love our game. And there's this thing called the 90-10 rule that I was taught that I really, really like using. And it's very simple. Instead of using 90% of your effort to convince somebody that is 10% interested in your game that they should like the game, put 10% in the effort into the people that are already 90% convinced that they want to buy your game, right? Marketing isn't about telling people that your game exists. It's about telling people that want to buy your game that your game exists. We're not here to convince people. We're not here to make people go like, you hate roguelikes. You hate shooter games. You know what you should do? You should play Nuclear Throne. Let me tell you about why you should play. Because it's like somebody coming by the door and telling you like to buy something from them. And you're like, I don't want to buy a thing. You're at my house. Go away. Right? You're being like that. Don't market that way. Market your way in such a way that people that would hate your game understand that they're going to really hate it. That people who would dislike your game would hate it. That people that are mostly convinced that they would probably be interested in your game, that they look at it and go like, oh, hey, okay, cool. And the people that would definitely love your game just click instantly. They're like, oh, that's what it is? Okay, cool, right? Your biggest opponent as an independent game developer is that nobody knows who you are and that nobody knows what you're making. But just fixing that people know who you are or what you're making doesn't mean good news. Because if all those people go to your store page and then decide that they're not interested in your game, it doesn't matter that 1 million people click on your store page. It doesn't matter that people go to your store page. Because you're going to have amazing numbers and 0% conversion. None of the people that get to your store page are actually going to buy your game. Because they're going to get there, realize it's not what they wanted, and then leave. So we want to filter before that, and that's the middle step, right? So the first step, the let people know about your game. You have even less space than a store page, right? Usually you have a trailer or an ad. That's usually how people learn about the game, or they learn about it via Twitch. Now, Twitch is a completely different beast. We'll talk about it after this sort of part. But what is important to understand is that when you're reaching out, one of the best things you can do is just test. Just test your marketing. Marketing is not a thing you get perfect in one go. It just isn't. You try. Now, here's the good thing about testing marketing. If your marketing doesn't work, nobody sees it. So nobody knows it's bad. You can try your marketing 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. And as long as it's not working, nobody sees it, and you can just try again. And you should. When you're reaching about a year out from launching your game, you should be starting on this already. You should be figuring out how to talk about the game. How do people click on our store page? Are there Reddits? Are there YouTube channels? Are there people that will play this game? Are there journalists that would play this game? You should be researching, who can I reach out to? When do I reach out to them? Where do they work? What does this cover? What kind of stuff do I need for people to check out this game, right? And part of that is, what kind of copy works? Copy being text. What kind of text works here, right? How should I talk about the game for people to be interested about the game? So you want to be researching that. I usually use ads for that. So I buy a bunch of ads at Facebook or Twitter. Doesn't have to be much, $100, something like that. I just put like $10 towards each campaign, and I see which one does better. If it does better, I'm like, okay, it was a small test. Let's try a slightly bigger test. If you set aside $200, $250 for the whole thing, you can perfectly A/B test your entire store page. Try some different screenshots, try some different text. Now, $200 is a lot of money. I do know it's a lot of money. But yes, Ahmed, that is called an A/B test, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're just making two versions of the same ad. You change one thing about it. So same screenshot, different text. Same text, different screenshot. Different title for the game. Your title is also marketing. It's one of the first things people see. A different logo, and try them and see if you can consistently get results, right? The better it does, the better it is. And with ads, you don't have to worry about serving it to people. It'll get served to people for you. Thank you. So the getting the people to your store page is mostly about just trying. It's not about finding the perfect solution. It's just about trying and then improving as you go. The more sound you make about the game, the better it is. But we need to figure out the step 2, which is getting people from Twitter, from Twitch, from a press release, from a YouTube trailer to your game. 2 things that are always true about that. You want to include a link almost everywhere. There needs to be a link to your store page. Obviously, there needs to be a link to your store page. Second, a call to action, a CTA, works. It's weird, but it just straight up works. I thought it was silly that all these YouTubers sit there and at the end of their video, they go like, please like and subscribe. Nowadays, they don't even do it at the end of the video. They do it early in the video. They do it at the start of the video. They start with what they're going to talk about. And then they go and if you're going to if this video is going to be interesting to you, don't forget to like and subscribe, right? Click that button right now. That's called a call to action. And here's the thing. It just turns out that asking people to do the thing that you clearly want them to do, clearly I'm talking to you about this game because I want you to buy this game. If you don't say it, people are less likely to do it. So, wishlist now, it helps. It sounds ridiculous, but it helps. Just do it, right? Check out the store page now, buy now, wishlist now, just do it. It works. It really works. Why does it work? I don't know. I never liked when people tell me what to do, but apparently this works on me too. It just does. So call to actions, they work. Include them. Good. The middle part, converting people from so between games out now, buy now, and check it out. Check it out would probably be the best one, right? Buy now feels a little presumptive. Feels a little bit like you're saying, like, hey, listen, I don't know what you care about the game. You should buy it. Buy this video game. But check it out sounds fairly nice. I know I just made up this rule on the spot, but it feels like if there was something that you would say, well, like, you know, threatening somebody, you probably shouldn't say that one. So buy now is a little like, well, check it out. It's nice. And Ahmed, yeah, it sounds mobile-like. It sounds mobile-like. It absolutely does. You know why mobile does it? Because they're really good at data. They're really good. They're really good at figuring this out. The people doing like mobile marketing, it's terrifying how good they are at hacking the human brain, basically, to just do what they want. But these are people that like A/B test whether the continue or store button is on the left or the right to see which one works better. Like they know everything. And Ahmed, you could say, I mean, they're thinking they're targeting a simpler demographic with younger audience and stuff. No, they're targeting mostly like housewomen between the age of 35 and 50. That's the largest audience. That's not a simpler audience. That's people that have hundreds of games to pick from. They just need to be convinced. So, you know, they actually have a fairly complex audience, but they just data the heck out of it. A/B test everything. Yeah, make it seem easy to get into and then hook them. Those commercials that don't look like the actual game you're downloading, really weird. You see a video where a character is dodging left and right. It is like, yeah, Mobile Legends, buy now, or like play now, or like whatever it is, right? It's like you click on the game and it's like, it doesn't look like the video. Doesn't matter. You're on the store page. Marketing did its job. And you're into weird arcade mobile games. Well, this is a weird arcade mobile game. That worked. I don't like it. I hate it. I think it's awful. Does it work? Yeah, it works. It works. That's why they do it. So, the middle part. Call to action really helps, right? But in that middle part of the funnel, that's the narrowing part, right? So at the top, we have everybody that could ever learn about your game. Everybody. That's the entirety of Twitter, all of Twitch, all of YouTube. Most of those people are not going to love your game. Most of those people aren't even going to like your game. Most of the people are going to think it's ugly, it's boring, and it's uninteresting, right? But that's true for God of War. That's true for Baldur's Gate. That's true for Gran Turismo. The majority of people who will hear about those games won't like those games. And they lean into what they are so hard so that when we see it and we're like, oh, I hate that, then we just don't click. We don't go to their store page. We don't check out the game. We don't click on the thing. And the reason they want that is because it cleans their data. It cleans it up. There's nobody going to that store page that isn't at least convinced to click on it, right? Anybody that gets to this, oh, Hamad, like my favorite thing about those ads is actually those mobile ads, they intentionally lose. They do a few things. First they play good. So you're like, okay, that's how you're supposed to play it. Okay, I get it. And then they make a clear mistake. They make a clear mistake so that everybody watching is like, oh, I can do better. I could do better. And then they go like, well, go for it. Right? And it works because we're simple creatures. Humans are simple creatures. We like to think we're so complicated. We're not complicated. If you work in marketing, if you work in like anything that works with like large groups of people, an individual human really hard to predict. If I take Ahmed or Karim or any of you, Marwa, I can't predict how you're going to react to something. But across all of you as a group, no, I know what's going to happen. Because you're a group. Groups are predictable. You all have a similar demographic, mostly. You have similar interests because you're in this call. So if I'm going to market something to you, I'm going to lean to it a little bit from the developer side, right? I'm going to talk a bit about how it's created because you'd be interested in that. I'm going to talk about the systems because I think you'd be interested in that as well. And I think one of the things I would have to do is I'd have to pick at your curiosity that this is something that is going to be a big deal, so that you can learn from it, so that you can check it out. I think that's how I get you to my store page. Does that mean you're going to buy the game? No, I don't know. But that's where you're going, right? In your career, that's where you're trying to get. So in that regard, like, that seems like a good place to go. And I think the majority of you will be able to steer to a store page pretty easily. Because groups of people are very easy to predict, because it's not about getting it 100% right. Getting an individual to do something is really hard. Anyway, the conversion part, right, that we were talking about, the large part to the small part, that is the make people hate your game part. And that's the most important part, because at the bottom of it, we want everybody that is not going to like your game to just not be part of it anymore. So marketing isn't just about getting people over, it's also about getting us rid of as many people as possible. It's an inversion of thinking about it. But the first step is, how do we get it to as many people as possible? The second step is, how do we make sure that out of all those people, only the people that would be interested in buying a game end up on our store page? And the final part is, how do we make sure the people that are on our store page end up clicking on the game? That second part is really where you have to make people hate your game. And again, like, this is a weird way of thinking about it, but believe me, this works consistently with developers. Stop thinking about how you make people like your game. Start thinking about how you make people that aren't going to like your game hate your game. Do that. It works much better because you're thinking about the problem from the right angle. You're thinking about the strengths of the game, because to the people that will hate it, those are weaknesses, right? To a player that doesn't like RPG, saying it's an RPG game is going to make them hate it. Saying that you have like roles for abilities is going to make them hate it. My brain is in Baldur's Gate, so I'm using a lot of Baldur's Gate examples. But for racing games, you know, like talking about how realistic the cars are, people are going to hate it, right? Shooter games, talk about like how fast-paced, how skill-based it is. People that don't like, they're going to hate it. You want to lean into the stuff that make people hate the game. Venba actually does a really good job of that, right? If you go to the Venba store page, I was actually fairly impressed by the Venba store page. Because you know what is the thing that people are going to hate most about Venba? Is that it's a short game, it's a narrative game, and it's a game about cooking. The first sentence of the Venba store page is, Venba is a short narrative cooking game. Straight up. You don't like short games, you're out. You don't like narrative games, you're out. You don't like cooking games, you're out. You're done. You're not going to read more of that. You're just done. Perfect store page writing. First sentence, they lose 90% of the people that get to their store page. And you know what you end up with? 95% positive. Because everybody that isn't going to like the game is gone already. They're gone. They're not buying your game. And that gives you that very positive rating. Now let's talk about reviews for a minute, because this is really important. Most store pages adjust their algorithm based on your reviews. Okay? There is per store, there's sort of a threshold where reviews start counting. 250 reviews, 1,000 reviews, something like that. And then if it is above a certain level, on the App Store, it's above 4 stars. On Steam, it's above 90%. If you can hit that, the game will get prioritized in the algorithm. That means that more players that don't love the game is worse for you than fewer players that do love the game. Because more players that don't love the game will stop your game from going in front of new people. And if you've done this right, your part of the funnel works. There's the part that makes people hate it, and then there's the part that makes people buy it, right? Those two parts. Cut people away, convert the people that are left. And all that means is you just have to point that funnel at different groups of people. And if the funnel works, pointing it at different groups of people, we'll get those people through that funnel. We'll filter out the people that are interested, and we'll convert people that are. If you can get that done, where the funnel works, then all you need to do is get people. And then that 95%, a very positive rating, makes all the difference. It makes all the difference, because it means that your store will put it in front of new people, which would be amazing, right? So those are the 3 steps of marketing. They're not what people expect. People expect that they have to make people love the game. They have to expect that it's, like just about getting people to understand that the game exists. None of that is true. These are the 3 steps. Get it in front of as many people as possible, convert as many cut away as many of those people, and then convert the people that are left into buying your game. Those are your 3 steps. They are 3 separate problems, and every part of your marketing needs to consider how that affects each one. Okay? Is that clear? Because that's probably the most important part of this entire talk. Now, after this, we're going into some practical things that you can do. But this is the philosophy behind marketing. And this is how you do good marketing. Okay? If you keep this in mind, you'll do a better job marketing than just hearing the practical tips. Because if you do the practical tips, you're going to end up doing it in a way that isn't going to achieve these 3 goals. And you need these 3 goals, right? Good. Practically, a lot of people get stuck at the practical part because there's so many games and there's so many ways of marketing your game. How does it help that Vemba? Question is, does it help that Vemba release during the Wholesome Game Steam group? Yeah, of course. Because it put a lot of people in front of that game. And the people that watch the Wholesome Games are already people that are filtered for your audience. So when you filter that group, you're going to notice that the filter looks like this. Barely anybody leaves. Most of the people that are watching that are already going to be interested in your game. It's a good place to start. And it gives them the ability to launch to a lot of people talking about the game and a lot of people downloading the game, which are both things you want to achieve. So let's go to the practical part. There's a few things you want to do practically that are always useful. The first one is you want to make sure that other people can do your marketing for you. I don't mean a marketing agency. I mean your players. You want to empower your players to do marketing, right? There's many ways to do that, but the best way to do it, I found, is make sure that there's stuff to talk about. Make sure that there's stuff to talk about. Make sure that there's stuff to talk about in your game. This is a short narrative game like Vemba. In Vemba, I've talked about one specific scene in the game that happens about 2/3 into the game. I've talked about that scene with tons of people. It is my favorite scene in a video game in the last few years. It is simple. It is very cleverly built. And it just landed perfectly for me. And I want to talk to people about it because it's important to me as well. Like it reflects something that I know from my life. And I loved it. And it gave me something to talk about. And I can guarantee that during development, the developers knew that that was the scene. This was it. This was either make or break, but this is the one people are going to talk about, right? Similarly, if you're doing a strategy game, we need to be able to argue about strategy. We need to be arguing about what the best class is, the best unit, what the best, we need to be able to argue about the meta. Shooter, same thing. We need to argue about what the best weapon is. We need to argue about all these things. So your game works better if there's reason to talk about it. Keep in mind that there's also the inverse working, though. It's not just that your game affects your marketing. It's also that your marketing affects your game. So there's a famous saying that your game starts the first time people hear of it. Not when they boot up the game. No, it starts the first time they hear of it, because that's when they start making expectations. Those expectations you need to meet. If you fall short of those expectations, people are going to be disappointed. That's going to push down that review rating. We don't want that review rating to go down, right? So you can't promise things that you're not going to do. So those mobile games that are marketing with a completely different game, They make sure that the game you're downloading is at least as good as or better than the game you're seeing. Because then you're going to be happily surprised. You're like, oh, hey, this is much better. This is nice, right? And they'll make sure that it's mostly a genre match. You clicked on an arcade game, you're going to get some sort of arcade game, right? You clicked on some sort of city building game, you're going to get some sort of city building game. That way, they minimize the amount of disappointments. Or they have data that this specific demographic would like this game if they would try it, and they target it at that other demographic that normally wouldn't play the game, but they have the data to support that, right? Now, when you are making sure that people can talk about your game, the best thing you can do is just listen to people as they play the game. And that's a playtesting thing. That's just a playtesting thing. And the role of playtesting remains the same. There's different ways to playtest. There's different reasons to playtest. My recommendation, if you're playtesting for whether the game is marketable, is just shut up. Just shut up. Just say nothing. Ask questions. Like, hey, if you had a friend, and if you like the game, if you had a friend, right? Like, how would you talk to them about the game? Like, you know, somebody just finished the playtest and they're like, oh my God, that was so good. You can just ask them, like, yeah. Hey, if you had a friend that you wanted to talk about this game, how would you talk about this game to them? Like, what would you tell them? And then poke at it a little. It's like, oh, I played this really cool game. It's like, okay, what was cool about it? And just listen to people. The ridiculous fishing pitch, right? The pitch for ridiculous fishing, which is famous at this point, is a handcrafted game about fishing with guns, chainsaws, and toasters. That's it. You know where I got that? At the Penny Arcade Expo. Was a person that came to play the game at the booth. They sat down, they played it, they loved it, they ran away, they came back, and they went, you should play this game. It's like fishing with like guns and chainsaws and like fucking toasters. And I was like, that's it. That's it. That's it. I don't even know who that person is, but I can guarantee you that that phrase was part of the success of Ridiculous Fishing, because it explains the entire game in one go. It's a handcrafted game, so care was put into it. It was made it was made to be a beautiful thing, and it's about fishing with guns and chainsaws and toasters, and that gets more and more ridiculous as you go. The guns, you're like, huh? And then chainsaws, you're like, wait, what? And then toasters, you're like, excuse me? And by the end of that sentence, we want everybody to go, huh? Because huh is good enough. Huh makes people like, huh? And then they want to know more. They want to like, well, what do you mean fishing with guns, chainsaws, and toasters? And now we got them. That's good enough, right? So when you playtest, ask people, how would you talk about the game? If you had a friend, how would you? And don't let them get away with the easy answer. They were like, oh, I played a really good game. No. How would you talk about this game? Right? What would you talk about? What was ask them, what was the best thing about the playtest? And listen to what they answer. Listen to how they answer. Write it down. That kind of sentiment analysis is really helpful, because if you write that down and you've now playtested with 100 people, you start noticing, oh, hey, everybody talks about this as a positive. Good, goes on the store page. Goes on the store page. Khalas, done. If out of 100 people that playtest your game, 40 people talk about this thing, that's good enough. Let's go. Put it on the store page. Say it a little better, but put it on the store page. Right? You can turn your audience into your marketing if you can get your audience moving. Now, we don't know if you can get your audience moving, but what we want to make sure is that this marketing machine, and this is the same thing you saw us do with the funnel, we're creating the funnel for in case it works. We're not going to go, okay, we're going to see if we can get people to our store page. And then when they get to our store page, we're like, oh, there's a lot of people on our store page. We need to fix our store. No. We're going to build this machine to be as perfect as possible. And when people go into that machine, into the marketing machine, that they come out as people that have bought the game, that like the game, that have ways to talk about the game, that want to talk to their friends about the game, that want to brag about the game. You're making indie games. Chances are that your game is going to be that obscure find, that really annoying person that always has those weird games is going to talk to their friends about. That's your game. How do we get that person? How do we get that indie game nerd to talk about the games. And I don't say nerd as a negative thing. Those people are my favorite people. I am one of those people. I never go to my friends and go like, oh, you should play the new Assassin's Creed. No, I'm like, oh, have you heard of Venba? Yeah, it's a game where you cook. It's like an hour and a half long. And my friends are like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what is that? Can I shoot? I'm like, no, you cook. And they're like, what? That's me. I'm that person. How do you convince me to go talk to my friends about your game? Right? That's your question. It's not about checking the game out. That's part of the funnel. It's about, okay, when they're here, when we're converted, when I'm playing your game, how do I make sure that Rami will talk about the game, right? And you see how that becomes easier if you use that funnel. If you go, okay, only people that would like the game are going to get here, because you kind of know what they are like. You kind of know who they are. You kind of know what they're interested in. And it means you can be a lot more targeted. You can think about who these people are, right? Amtufa asks, would that be through a trailer in the Steam page? Yeah, for example, you put it in a trailer. It can be in the game, right? If people have already bought the game, how do we get people to talk about the game? But it can be in a trailer. Ask a question in a trailer. Pose a mystery in a trailer. You're doing an RPG. Never tell what the RPG is about. You don't. You never do. It's always a mystery. There's always a grand mystery. There's always an epic plot. There's always a conspiracy. You might see like a big enemy, but you never see like the enemy. You do an action game, you show the enemy straight away. That's the bad guy we're going to wreck him. Anyway, here's a lot of shooting, right? You do the Darth Vader style. You do Star Wars style. You start with showing Darth Vader, and then you go to shooting, right? Oh, this is the bad guy. He's doing bad things. Okay. He's going to launch a nuke. He's going to destroy the space station. He's going to, okay. Anyway, now we shoot them. Right? That's an action game. RPG, you don't do that. You go like, in a world. You know, you go that way. You're like, oh, you're like, this world is beautiful. Look, there's trees. It's great. Amazing. Wow. Anyway, there's a scary thing. There's corruption. It's brewing under the surface. Oh no, our hero is going to go out and deal with it. It's Lord of the Rings. You don't start with like, there's an eyeball that like has like X-ray eyes and that can see you anywhere and it represents eternal evil. You go with like the Shire. Here's hobbits. Hobbits have hair on their feet. And there you go. Also, like a demon eyeball is going to destroy the planet. Right? Every game kind of has its own sort of way of talking about it. And when you know who you're talking to, it makes it easier to talk about it. Because you can just keep to the sort of like general accepted rules of that genre. Like a racing game, I want a shot of that car. If you're not starting with like a shot of the rims of the car on the wheel, are you making a racing game? Or you're not making a racing? I don't think you're making a racing game. It's either going to be the headlights or the wheels. That's what we're going to be seeing, right? And that works because it just shows to the people, it signals to the people that like these games, oh, you're one of us. You're making one of our things. So yes, it can be through the trailer, absolutely. But in general, this is throughout the entire process, every step of the way. You want to make a game, a racing game, you start with that shot of the headlights and the wheels. And you know why? Because everybody who doesn't like racing games clicks away. We make them hate the game instantly. We go, rims, headlights. And I'm like, oh, I don't like racing games. Click, next thing. We're done. Don't have to think about these people anymore because they make the data less reliable. And marketing, in a way, is about data, right? Okay. So that's the first part. Second part, what can we do to actually get people to talk about the game, right? And this is a question that there's just not one answer for. It's actually very similar to pitching. The way you do this is you keep in mind that the only bad marketing is good marketing that hurts your game. That's bad marketing. That's the only bad marketing. Marketing that doesn't work, that doesn't get anybody interested, is not bad marketing. It just didn't work. But it's not bad. It doesn't hurt you. Nobody cares. Nobody read it. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw that it was bad. You don't have to worry about it. Khalas, it's done. If you market something and everybody goes like, oh, this is terrible. That's bad marketing. That is, it's working, but it's hurting you. Right? There was a very big example on Twitter the other day of a game that got any attention for all the wrong reasons. A lot of people saw that game. I can guarantee you almost nobody bought that game because all the attention was negative, right? And it made the game into an example of a bad thing instead of turning it into an example of a thing you might want to play. So even the people that would be interested now look at it and go like, not sure about that one. So the only bad marketing is successful marketing. Successful marketing that works against you. The best marketing is successful marketing that works in favor of you. But until it works, it doesn't matter. Which really means to say, just try everything. Twitch streamers, press, Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Telegram, write a blog, do a ARG, do whatever fits your game that you feel would fit the world, would fit the game, would fit the demographics of people that would like your game. Do them. Do all of them. Why not? Good trader, let's go. You think your game, the game I'm creating makes people rage from time to time. Great. Great. Nuclear Throne makes people rage from time to time. There's an entire part of gamers that really loves getting their ass handed to them. So lean into that, right? Toby did a great job. Toby did a great job by just being like, okay, Toby can't let a joke go. And then he literally goes in the feature page. He takes the dog joke about how many dogs there are, and he makes it 5 of the 11 bullet points. That's not letting the joke go too early. Like, he keeps going at that joke. He's proving the point, right? That's clever. So if your game makes people rage from time to time, okay, what people like that? How do I get them to play the game, right? How do I lean into that? They don't hate the game. They're loving the game, hopefully. As somebody's saying, as is being said in the chat, they have to rage because the game is good, not because the game is bad, right? If people are raging because the game is good, that's awesome. If people are raging because the game is bad, that's not great, right? So one response we just got is, why wouldn't you try everything? And somebody said money. Fair enough. Most marketing, most successful marketing in independent games is done pretty much for free. Okay, that A/B testing I talked about, that's $250. You can do a great job with $250. That's still a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money. You're going to need to buy your Steam page. That's $100 as well. So say for most indie games, you're going to want to have $500 to $1,000, and that will cover all of your marketing. A lot of money, but you can do with far less, right? Now, here's the things you want to make sure you have: a good trailer, good screenshots, a blurb that you have tested and that works, a press kit where people can access all sorts of relevant data about your game. If you haven't made a press kit before, do press kit is a thing that I made exactly for you. It's free, don't have to pay for it. What it does is it shows you what does a press kit look like. And a press kit is not there to sell your game. It's to help people who want to talk about your game, press streamers, stuff like that. It's to give them access to what they need to do it. Before press kits, if your game got popular, the screenshots the press would use would just be the first result in Google. And usually that's not the best screenshot. What a press kit is it's a collection of ways to talk about the game, a collection of screenshots, a collection of trailers. Yeah, Ahmed is saying, I kind of don't still understand what a press kit is. All right, well, let's do it simple. If you click on the link that we just put in the channel, in the chat, and then you'll go to a website with Do Press Kit, and it has a live examples thing on the left, and just click the Vlambeer one. And then after you click the Vlambeer one, click, actually just leave it on the Vlambeer one. you'll see a bunch of information, and it has information about the history of the studio, about the cloning incident, about Nuclear Throne. It has a bunch of videos. It has a lot of screenshots and photos of us. It has the logo. It has awards, recognition, articles that you can read. If anybody wants to do anything, write anything about Vlambeer, they can just go and read this, and they'll have all the information they need. That's what a press kit is. Effectively, it's a little gift package to somebody who wants to work with your game, on your game, write about your game, make a video about your game, and you go like, oh, you want to make a video about it? That's amazing. Anyway, here's some good footage. Here's a good trailer. Here's some hero art for some of the characters that you can use in your thumbnails. Here's some concept art that you can use in your thumbnails, right? Here's gameplay screenshots, gameplay footage that you can use as B-roll or that you can use in your article. That's a press kit. It's literally just a little gift package for people to help them get the word about your game out and to control how they talk about your game and when they talk about your game. Now, obviously, you can't control whether they're positive or negative about your game, but you can make sure that they're using the best possible screenshots. Ahmed, it's for both. It's for the studio and for the project. You want to make sure that you do one for the studio and you do one for the project. Now, Vlambeer has been shut down for the past few years, so I'm noticing that the game pages currently aren't working. So I can't show you what those look like. I need to fix that. Oops, my bad. But then again, the studio has been dead for the past few years. If you try the Octodad example on the Do Press Kit page, Young Horses, you can see a press kit for a video game, which also helps. So that's what a press kit is. It's basically a gift package. And it's a gift package to help people talk about your game. It's made for press. Press includes both Twitch streamers and media. Okay. Now, my best marketing idea, my best marketing idea is to go to Twitch and streamers that have 20 to 40 views where you ask in chat and beg them to try the game, or if you have money, go to bigger Twitch streamers and donate $50 to bag. Here's the thing. When I talk to indies, I always have one question, and this is the final thing we're going to talk about today. What is your marketing plan? And your marketing plan is a sequence of actions that you're going to do with a fairly predictable outcome that work towards the goal of marketing your game. But what is important is that it has a fairly predictable outcome. So I'm going to streamers with 20 to 40 views and beg them to play the game. Is that going to work? Or is that not going to work? If it's not going to work, or you're not sure it's going to work, then that is not part of your marketing plan. Part of your marketing plan is you're going to try and reach out to people on Twitch. That's fine. But that is not a marketing plan. That is a step in trying to get Twitch coverage of your game. Your marketing plan is, okay, let's get Twitch coverage. That means that your game is probably a good fit for Twitch. It is probably a repeatable game. It is probably a game that you can play over and over again. It probably has a long play time, or it has like strong player agency where players can choose, because that's what works on Twitch. Multiplayer games, roguelikes, games where you have lots of choices, where you can talk about those choices. That's what's interesting about Twitch streamer. If you had a narrative game where you only press one button and the Twitch streamer can't do anything, the only thing they have really to sell to their audience, because they are selling to their audience. Like every Twitch streamer I know understands that they are the product, right? They're the product, not the game. The game is just the part that they use to be the product. But if you have a game where it's like a very emotional game, then they're going to have to react to that game. If they're playing a very emotional game and they're not showing any response, they're not showing any emotion, the audience isn't going to connect with them. So they exaggerate their emotion, because that is what the product is, right? That's why Twitch streamers continuously like jump up at their desk. Who jumps up at their desk when they're playing video games? Nobody jumps up at their desk when they're playing video games. I think the last time I jumped up when I was playing a video game was when I was like 14 or something. Is that's because I'm like turned into a super boring person? Maybe I did, but I don't think so. It's just nobody realistically jumps up at their computer when they do a thing in a video game. If you're playing with friends, yeah, absolutely. If I score a goal in FIFA and I have a bunch of friends on the couch next to me, I'm going to jump up on that couch and like point at them and laugh at them. Absolutely. But like, if I'm playing Call of Duty, then I'm, like the thing that I'm going to be talking about is about what I'm playing, why I'm playing, why I'm going this way, why am I going into that hallway? Oh, I think there's an enemy there. Let's get you to come along with my thought process, right? That's how streamers work. They're continuously thinking of, okay, how do I engage the audience? And they'll exaggerate for that. They'll come up with weird personas for that. Most Twitch streamers have this thing where they call their viewership a certain thing. They have like, like they call their community, they have like a word for their community. It's just to make you feel part of it, right? Oh, you're one of those, like, kind of funny best friend or whatever it is. And that's just because it works. They're doing marketing the entire time, right? Now, okay, when it comes to reaching out, it means that if you're going to be reaching out to, the Habibis, we call our community Habibis, and that's just, it works, right? The important thing, though, when you think about it, is that you want to make sure that when you reach out to these people, you give them something that they can benefit from. No Twitch streamer plays a video game because they think the game is good. They don't. They really don't. I know Twitch streamers. I know a lot of famous Twitch streamers. I know a lot of small Twitch streamers. I work with a lot of them. A game being good is not why they play a video game. They play a video game because it's good and it'll do well on stream. It'll be nice to talk about. It'll be fun to talk about. There's a story to tell about it. There's a way to play it in which way they can have their unique personality center. They're effectively, and they're in a way it's funny because there used to be this discussion 5 or 10 years ago about how easy it was to buy the press. I've worked with press for 15 years. You cannot buy the game press. Those people are ethically and morally, they are impossible to corrupt. Like, yeah, there's exceptions. Yeah, there's people that but like in general, the games press, if you're talking to IGN and you're trying to buy an ad, the people writing the articles don't know what ads are going to be on the page when the article goes live. They will never know. That is completely separated. Completely separated, right? If you want to bribe some people to play your game, no, go to Twitch streamers. They have no moral code. There's no ethical code. They'll just do whatever they need to get views. That's their job, right? You want to bribe some people? Yeah, you're right. Like go to Twitch. That's where you bribe people to play your game. Keep that in mind also when doing marketing. So a good marketing plan, let's quickly go through it because we don't have endless time, but let's quickly go through it. Step 1, we want to tackle the second part of our funnel, which is that tightening part, right? That's where we start. So to do that, we need to get it in front of as many people as possible. So we reach out through every possible source. Good games marketing, I've noticed the people that are good at games marketing, they don't just reach out to Games Press. We did a game about fishing. I also reached out to a bunch of nature websites, and I also reached out to a bunch of art websites that do abstract art because the game is a fairly abstract art style. And I just researched where people could talk about the game, right? And I find those places and I make sure that they do talk about the game. Second part then, now you have people interested. How do we get them on the store page? A/B testing. Preferably before you start your reach out. So this is something that you do with playtesting. It's something you do as you're building the game. During playtesting, it's something that you do with ads, with stuff like that. Before you do your big reach out, you do it on your own profiles. Even if you have 100 followers, that's more than enough to A/B test some stuff. Now, it's not going to be completely representative, but it'll give you a feeling, right? Create resources, trailer, screenshots, press kit, create all those things, create text, create copy, right? Create bullet points, create feature lists, test it on people. If you're on Steam, you have access to UTM links. UTM links are links that you can put a thing behind. You've probably seen it. when you have a link that says like UTM campaign or something like that at the end, all that does is it logs in the backend where that click came from. And it allows you to see what part of your marketing is working. Gather data. You want to be gathering data all the time. What works, what doesn't work, how many people are coming in, how many people are buying the game. How many people are coming from here, how many of those people are buying the game. More here, let's put more effort there, right? And then the third thing, money. Money is a weird thing. Marketing has a simple rule. Take a part of your revenue, a part of the money your game is making, say 10%, 20%, and put that into marketing. Never more. Don't spend more than you're earning. You always want to keep earning money, but spend that on marketing, right? Now there's two realities of your game, and that's kind of what I want to wrap up with, that are important to know. There's two realities of your game. If you have a publisher, the publisher is going to take care of 90% of the marketing for you. You don't have to worry about that too much, right? And the process we talked about in the pitch is fairly similar to the process in marketing. So you don't filter, they filter. You send it to everybody, they filter. They'll tell you no, they won't write about it. That's okay. We're going to send it to everybody. You don't think your game is big enough for IGN? How about you let IGN decide that? Why are you deciding that? It's not your job to decide it. Let IGN decide it. You think your game is too small for the New York Times? Why? You think your game is too small for I saw PewDiePie, but not PewDiePie. Who are the big streamers now? I have no idea who the big streamers nowadays are. It changes every 3 months. The big ones, whoever the big one is right now. You think your game is too big, too small for that? No, send it anyway. Send it. Figure out where you can send it to people. Send it. You don't think your game should be at Summer Games Fest? You don't think Jeff Keighley is going to be interested in your game? Screw it. Send it anyway. Right? DM him. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to be subtle. You're just going to say like, hey, I have a game. I think you'd love it. And I'd love to talk about, getting it on your stream. I'd love to talk about getting it. Like you can just straight up say that because they get those emails all the time. You're not going to be weird. No, you won't lose anything by reaching out to them. Like the worst they're going to do, again, like this is how marketing works. The only bad marketing is good marketing with a negative outcome. If you email Jeff Keighley with your weird little indie game, right? I make weird little indie games, don't get me wrong. You reach out to Jeff Keighley with a weird little indie game, and Jeff looks at it and is like, he's not going to remember that in 6 months when you email him again. He's not going to go like, didn't I get that? He's just going to go like, you don't lose anything by reaching out. Like they're not going to be offended that you think they're good marketing. They just don't have time for you, right? Or they do, or they look at your thing and they're like, oh, okay. How about you let them decide that? Reach out anyway, right? Karim, you do give a key, but this is the part that I wanted to talk about. You do give a key, but the marketing plan. A good marketing plan starts more than 3 months before launch. And it usually starts with community building. So it usually starts with getting the people that you can already reach into a community. Now, on your second game, that's going to be much easier than on your first game. On your first game, this is one of the hardest parts, is to get the first 10 people into a Discord or to follow your Twitter account, right? This is the hardest part. And most people do it by participating in Screenshot Saturday, in Pitch a Game, in any of those hashtags, any of those competitions. They put their work on ArtStation, whatever it is that gets a lot of people talking about their game, right? You can tweet into the void. Even if you have 0 followers, tweet, right? Because when you start getting followers, people clicking on your account and saying like, oh, actually, there's a lot of stuff here. It makes it more legitimate, right? So just start 6 months before launch, right? 3 months before launch, we're going to start getting serious. 3 months before launch, you reach out to the written press. Only the written press, okay? And the reason we only do the written press is because they have a moral code. So we know if we say, hey, don't talk about this, they won't talk about it. Because there's no reason for them to piss you off. They don't benefit from it. 3 months in advance, we reach out to written press. And what we're going to say is, hey, we're working on this game. The store page is probably going live about that time, right? And like we'd love for you to sort of like take a look at it. We have early builds, and we're just checking if you'd be interested in a review build a bit later, right? And if they're interested, there's a link to the press kit. So if they're interested to talk about it, they can talk about it already. They probably won't, but now they're aware your game exists. That's good. Let's keep it that way. If they're interested, they'll make a note to check back later, right? You probably won't hear from them, but we're going to do it anyway. No more than no less than 1 month before your launch, your store page needs to be live. Preferably it's live much earlier, never before pitching. If you're going to pitch, you don't put your store page live. After you're done pitching, and either you have a publisher or you don't have a publisher, that's when you can put your store page live. You're going to gather wish lists. As soon as you put your store page live, any publisher that you're going to talk to is going to ask you about how much wish list you have. And you probably won't have too many because you can't do marketing. That data will give them an extra weapon against you. So that's why we don't put the store page live until after we've pitched. The less data we have, the better it is actually, right? But as soon as we're done with pitching and we know whether we're going to get published or not going to get published, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the store page is there and that people can connect to it, that they can wish list it, that they can go into the community page, that they can talk about it, right? That they have methods of talking about it. 1 month in advance, we start preparing our review copies. Now, there's a reason that people say that your final build of the game should be locked at least 2 weeks before launch. The reason for that is that that's how much time it takes to write a review for an indie game that isn't the most important thing that's launching this month. You're never going to be the most important game that launches this month. The most important game is going to be a Grand Theft Auto or a Baldur's Gate or a Gran Turismo or a Gears of War or whatever it is, right? Like, it's going to be a big game. It's going to be rumors of a new Switch or, a PlayStation Slim or whatever. It's going to be stuff like that. It's not going to be our weird indie games. That's never going to be, we're never going to be the most important news. So we're not going to get priority, which means people will need time. 2 weeks in advance, sending a review copy is a good idea. That means that, yes, when you do reach out and you want people to be interested in your game, even if you're early in the game, you send a key. You send a key because it adds it to their Steam account or their Apple account so that when you do an update, they see it. And then when you send an email and it's already like in their Steam account, they just have to update it. Exception, Twitch streamers. You can't trust any Twitch streamer because Twitch streamers are in a hyper-competitive market and a lot of them will do whatever they need to get an advantage. And if that means breaking the embargo by a day, if that means streaming your game 2 days before you want people to stream your game, if that means streaming your game 3 weeks before launch, some of them will do it. Now, most of them are good. Most of them have some sort of honor code, but you don't know what their honor code is unless you follow them, right? Unless you interact with them a lot. So with Twitch streamers, we're going to wait. For them, it's also not important to play the game before launch, right? It doesn't matter much to them. So press 2 to 3 weeks in advance. You reach out with a review copy. And then on the final day before launch, you reach out with some sort of like launch thing, whether it is a final copy of the game, a launch trailer, anything that they can write about. And you let them know, hey, the game is launching at this and this time. We'd love for you to talk about it at no earlier than, 6 hours before launch. Written press will generally respect that, right? So that's why you can send them stuff early. Streamers, they will barely read your email. They just look at the screen and go, oh, this will be good on stream, and they download it and then play it, right? For Twitch streamers, last day before launch is when you send the build. No earlier than that. Unless you know the streamer well, then you send it in negotiation with that person. So to say like, hey, can I play the game like 2 days early? You want that? Cool. Does that piss off every other streamer? Yeah. But if that streamer is big enough, it might be worth it, right? Or if they have a good enough audience fit for you, that might be worth it. So the reason this talk isn't very much about like the specifics is because there's no answer to that. I could sit down with each of you and I would have to learn about your game for half an hour to give you any specific advice on how to market your game. But what I can do, and what I've tried to do this past, like, what is it, hour and a half, is to talk to you about how to think about marketing and how to approach it, where you're coming at, right? Now, the timings, yeah, I can give you the timings, but what you put in those timings, I can't tell you. For an RPG, that's going to be so different, because 3 weeks in advance for an RPG where you have different classes, you know, it will be good. A video of each of the classes. That's really good content. You can release one every 5 days, right? You need to prep for it, but you can go like, Archer, this and this and this. Here's some examples of their abilities. Here's what, like, here's a funny thing they say in their VO, or like, here's like a cool moment from the game. You can do that with an RPG. You can go and make like videos of each of your amazing locations. You can do that. Racing games, you can go into the cars, right? A shooter game, you can't do that. Yeah, maybe the weapons, if they're really good. If you have really good weapons, you could do like a weapon overview trailer, but nobody's going to watch like, this is the soldier, you shoot him. Like, it's just not interested, right? So for shooter, it's a lot more explosive. It's a lot more like, okay, let's put some high octane energy in there. Let's get this going, you know? So I can't tell you, I can't tell you how to market your game, but I can tell you that you should know how to market your game by the time you reach marketing. You should know what things are to talk about. You should know what things you can use to sort of keep people warm as the game is in development. You should know where the strengths are visually, where the strengths are talking about it. And a lot of that is just integrating that into your development instead of seeing it as a separate point. That's why we make those screenshots throughout all of development, not just near the end of it. Is because it's so critical to be thinking about marketing and to start getting a feeling for, oh, this is a great screenshot. Look at those screenshots. Why are they good? Why do you think they're good, right? In Nuclear Throne, we realized that good screenshots, and if you go to the Nuclear Throne store page one more time, you'll see this in each of them. If you look at the screenshots, each of them has like a little story, right? And you can kind of guess what is happening in the screenshot. You can't really tell because there's so much stuff going on. But like, okay, if we start at the leftmost screenshot, the third one, it's a dark room. There's enemies and they're kind of like sneaking up on you. You're surrounded. That's a good story. We really like that screenshot because it gives this like sense of like, oh, stuff is happening. But we realized if there's nothing dying in that screenshot, it doesn't feel like an action game. So we have at the bottom, we have a whole bunch of stuff happening. Now, if you don't know the game, you don't know what's happening, but it looks like something is happening there, right? That worked. The second one, big explosions. That works. We're Vlambeer. Like, people like Vlambeer for big explosions. Then there's like the big guy with the laser gun in like a weird laboratory. Then there's a chicken with a sword. Then there's another dark thing, but like every screenshot kind of has like, most of them have a different character or a different character there. In every screenshot, there's something that resembles a bullet or the output of a bullet happening on the screen. And realize that's what makes a good Nuclear Throne screenshot. It's like cause and effect. If you can't figure out cause and effect in a Nuclear Throne screenshot, it's not a good Nuclear Throne screenshot. And we figured it out through hundreds of hours of looking at screenshots during development. Well, not hundreds of hours, but probably like a dozen plus hours of looking at screenshots every week. I would take 500 screenshots, scroll through them and go like, oh, this one is pretty good. Yeah, let's keep it. And then after a while, I had a folder with like 100 screenshots and I was like, oh, that's what works. And then I could select the best ones, right? Traders are too big of a topic, so we're not going to go into traders. All I can say is like, traders are not a thing you just do. Making a good trade is really hard. There's a lot of like good reading about it. There's people that specialize in game traders on Twitter. Let me get the right person for you here, because there's one person who really specializes in game traders, and they actually are fairly nice with talking about how they do game traders. Their name is Derek Liu. And Derek talks a lot about traders and why traders work. He does breakdowns and podcasts and videos. He does consultancy. He can be, depending on fairly affordable. If you say like, hey, we're from a place where money is a little more difficult, he's a good person. So he's worth reaching out to. There's tons of them, by the way. You don't have to reach out to Derek. There's tons of game trader people, but we're not going to go into traders here. We just don't have time. How much of that do you have questions about? Because I'm sure there's a bunch of you that will have very practical questions. I can make like 10 more minutes, maybe 15. If you have any just like straight up practical questions, like, okay, you talked about this. How do I do that? If you can put them in chat right now, or you can raise your hand so Ashraf can unmute you. That would be great. Otherwise, I'm just going to make dinner. Nobody has questions. I'm just going to make some food. That's okay too. I prefer questions though.
Yeah, I think most people have made games or are making their games for the first time. So like one or two names of people that have worked on games before, but I think most people actually, are creating the first game. So it's first steps, which is wonderful. We did have a question from Kareem, which was about whether you have to pay Twitch streamers or just offer the game to them. So
no, you can pay Twitch streamers. And there's a number of large Twitch streamers where you're going to have to pay to get them to play your game. Let me tell you, they are not the right people to pay. If you're going to work with Twitch streamers, Tufa, I'm Tufa earlier, actually perfectly said it. You want to reach the mid-sized Twitch streamers, because the way it works is actually very simple. Twitch, like any other platform, there's the very small streamers that just nobody cares about, right? We're going to ignore those, not because we don't like them, just because they're not going to help in any way, shape, or form. Then there's the big streamers that are super organized. They have agents, you pay them to play your game, stuff like that. But those big streamers have a second way of finding interesting games, which is whatever's trending on Twitch. You know what makes things trend on Twitch? The mid-level streamers. The people who have like 40 to 100 people in their stream. And if 1,000 of them are streaming a thing, you can guarantee that one of the big streamers then goes and plays it too. Right? Now, those mid streamers also watch the big streamers, but the big streamers also pay attention to what's doing well on Twitch because they want to be part of that. They don't want to be the last one there. So I would go and chase the sort of like mid-sized streamers. I wouldn't pay them. I actually have never paid for a Twitch stream in my entire life. Instead, I found people that I looked at their output, I looked at what they made, and I just emailed them. And this is not necessarily when Vlambeer was famous. This was also before Vlambeer was like a big deal. It just turns out that just letting them know, like, hey, I watch your stuff, love it, really think my game is a fit. Here's a build, here's a trailer, here's some stuff that you can use if you want to make a stream about it. That helps great. Things that don't work. The donation system in Twitch does not work. In fact, people hate that. The Twitch streamer likes it because they're getting money and their community will dunk on you, which is engagement. So for them, it's a win-win. They love it when you do that. But it's not good for you. It's good for them. Because you pay, now the entire chat hates you because you're advertising on their channel. You're hijacking the donation feature for marketing, which is a no-no. So they can all dunk on you, which is great for the streamer because the streamer can go like, oh, yo, what was that? Did somebody just use the donation system? Like, that's not what the donation system is for. And then they can talk about you for like 10 minutes and dunk on you. So, don't do that. Most of these streamers get free copies of the game, which is true. And famous streamers get additional access, whatever that is, right? They get like custom stuff made for them, or like a physical press kit where like gifts get sent to their house. You don't want to do any of that. Like the latest indie game that I remember that did that, send me a leather mask because the game was based on that folklore. It's great, beautiful. But if you do, if you are an influencer, and I'm kind of a weird influencer, like, but people treat me like an influencer, so I get like headphones and stuff like that. At some point, you just kind of stop caring unless it is content that you can really use on your stream. So, or in your articles. So, you know, it's a waste of money unless you can really throw $500 at each of those packages, which is what the big companies do. So forget about paying for stuff. The only thing you should be paying for in terms of marketing is A, your trailer, if you can't do it yourself. B, A/B testing with ads on Facebook or Twitter or anything of that, like that, or Reddit, wherever you want to advertise. And C, if this is all too much for your team, a marketing agency. Now, marketing agencies are not cheap. Getting access to a marketing agency that will do good work will cost you about $5,000 a month, right? That's going to be too expensive for most first-time developers. If you're in your second or third game, that's a lot more doable if one of your games was successful. But yeah, $5,000 a month is what you should expect for an okay marketing agency. The good ones are far more expensive, but you don't need those to benefit. But what I would keep in mind is that cadence, right? 3 months, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, day of launch. You know, keep that in mind. Forget about money. That's just not how marketing works. Like, it's never how marketing works. Nobody ever bribed the press. It just does. That's not how it works. A lot of people bribe Twitch streamers, for sure. Yeah, that's just not how it works. Ayuna asks, would you recommend someone advertise a game on Reddit, and in what sort of timing and format? Yes, you can absolutely advertise on Reddit. If you're going to advertise on Reddit and you're going to do it as a poster, as a person posting on Reddit, you're not going to do it as ads, then I would recommend you talk to the moderators of the subreddit you're going to post on first. Get their permission, get their okay. If they say like, nope, can't do that, then don't. If they say you can, then go for it. But talk to the moderators of a subreddit. So Reddit is weird in that each community is so different that it's really worth like just checking with people who run that space. And you do that by just emailing them or messaging them, you know, sending a direct. Again, anything that works, right? So don't filter, don't say, oh, our game isn't big enough, it's not good enough, it's not nice. Like, make sure that you have something that you're proud of to market, and then just market the heck out of it. Like, Karim, is it bad to advertise on all platforms we can get our hands on? The opposite is true. That is the best possible thing you can do, because what you're going to do is you're going to try everything, and then you're going to see what sticks. If it works, you keep doing it. If it stops working, you stop doing it. Actually, to loop back to a thing I said earlier, sorry, my brain is all over the place. Ramona said you set 20% of your money apart for marketing. You know why you do that? To see if you get more than that amount of money back from marketing. So you're going to market in places, you're going to pay money for that. And the places that make more money than you spend, those you continue doing. The ones where you lose more money than you earn, that's where you stop. So if you see you do Twitter marketing, just not really results, no people coming to your store page, bad conversion, done. Khalas, no more Twitter. There's no more Twitter. No more X. I feel like my grandma. My grandma, when she would see George Bush on TV, she would go, phew. And I 100% feel like that when it goes about X. So just, you know. Anyway. Yeah, X, Facebook, whatever, you try whatever. If it works, you keep doing it. If it doesn't work, you stop doing it. So try everything, Karim. Like, maybe just everything, anything you can do that works, keep doing it. Anything else?
Perfect. I think this is a beautiful place to
Yeah,
stop. Any more questions?
it was
Uh,
a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
If any of you have any questions at any point, book.ramiismail.com allows you to book a free 20-minute phone call where we can talk about your game, we can talk about your marketing, we can talk about your game. If you need feedback or whatever, feel free to use this link right here. You don't pay anything. Like, I just want to help out. You get 20 minutes where we can just talk, and then it'll be much easier to give you very specific feedback on your game and your situation and what does and doesn't work. So if you want it, feel free to use it. It's been really fun talking to y'all. If there's anything I can do in the future, let me know. And in the meanwhile, I know Ashraf linked it earlier. I do have a newsletter that is free as well. That's available at ltpf.ramiismail.com. That is this one. That's free. Just sign up. You'll get an email every 2 to 4 weeks with like an article about everything, including marketing, but also business, pitching, negotiations, team management, game design, like all sorts of things. So I just do that so that in my consultancy, I don't end up answering the same question over and over. So please read that before you call me. And then you can follow me on X, which for some reason is still on twitter.com. So you can follow me on twitter.com/THA_Rami. You can also follow me on Blue Sky, LinkedIn. Just find me anywhere and follow me. I'll be happy to follow back, and then we'll stay in touch.
Fantastic. And honestly, this was a very good example of a CTA at the end of the session.
100%. We're going to do that.
Perfect. All right. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for attending. Rami, thank you. It
Shukran.
was absolutely perfect. And I guess we'll keep in touch. Great.
Inshallah. Yalla. Salam. Bye-bye.